Man, it's creating a terrible atmosphere, Realvio, terrible indeed. I always bring the case of Filipe Martins here because everything that happened is so absurd, it's so heavy, that I keep hoping that someone will stand up and say, wait, I made a mistake, I was a kid. But while that doesn't happen, I collect good and rare stories that bring at least a hint of what not only the traditional media of Brazuela, with a huge overwhelming part of the legal class, pretends not to see. Filipe Martins, the stone in Alexandre de Moraes' shoe, becomes a pineapple for the Supreme Court. But I think that until today, no one understood why that Filipe, in fact, is a stone or a banana peel at the foot of Minister Alexandre. I think that many people did not realize the gravity of the facts that happened, and to solve this problem, I am here to explain in a very didactic way why I think it will give. Merlin, go. Merlin, will you really go? I mean, seriously, how will justice manage to get out of this? I honestly don't know, but I do know what the defense has done and is currently doing. So if you're looking for something shocking and maybe even exciting, grab some popcorn, get cozy, and dive in. This Monday, Estadão brought the article saying that the Filipe Martins case was a thorn in Alexandre's side and a pineapple for the other ministers of the court. The article itself brings the account of Filipe's defense, who does not even know how to defend himself from an accusation that does not even have evidence to be offered, and what's more, under judicial madness sprinkled with torture. Take a look at this quote opening excerpt. Carried out by both military and civilians, the actions that were supposed to aim to keep Jair Bolsonaro in power become a central theme in the ongoing dispute between Martins' defense lawyers and Minister Moraes. Since the defendant had his arrest order issued due to a trip he didn't make, which resulted in him remaining in prison for 6 months, with 10 of those days spent in solitary confinement, you close quotes? Jailed for 6 months for a trip you didn't take and 10 days in solitary? The accusation from both the federal police and the PGR against Filipe was very simple. He would have made a girl. Bitch, who would decree a state of defense or a state of SID? What is all that? The same thing, but pay close attention to what I am going to state now. The only evidence that exists against Filipe is SID's denunciation, which is not even evidence. And it becomes even more fragile when we add up everything that happened around SID's own denunciation as contradictions, such as audio of SID venting, saying that he had to agree with the federal police's narrative until he threatened to send his father, wife, and daughter to be arrested. To give more consistency to the complaint offered, it was necessary at least one more denunciation from someone very close to Bolsonaro, just to say that, hey, there are two telling the same story. It's not just SID. No. For me, my opinion, it was for this reason that Filipe went to jail and tortured there to denounce. And from that moment in the video, you will understand the chronology of the absurd, and the truth is a very inconvenient thing for those who want to hide there, because she always shows up. Filipe was arrested in February in Operation Tempos Veritados regarding the accusation of having fled the country to escape his crimes. Filipe Malvadão, the fugitive from CPFIO, Alexander believed. On March 1st, 2024, GONE or OPGR recommended the release of Filipe Martins, claiming that the defense seemed to have sufficient practical and legal reasons. Since after his arrest, plane tickets, photos, and other documents were handed over showing that Filipe had never left Brazil. So you can release Filipe, please. In response to GONE's release request, Moraes orders APF to comment on the matter. And that's when things start to get, let me think of one word that won't land me in jail. Strangers. On March 7th, Guilherme Amado, still in Metropolis, does an article that Filipe Martins said, Abgra uses Travel Story, a website that has no legal value, as it is manipulated by people and is only used to help the public. On the same day that Guilherme Amado, who now works at ICL Noticias, the Chupa Lula Institute, releases this article, the federal police issues an opinion contrary to the PGRE's release request, cites Guilherme Amado's article, and the Travel Story to base itself. Just an important addendum on the same Travel Story website, it says it is Hey, if you're a judge or an officer of the law, avoid using this document since it lacks any legal authority. Utilizing it officially in the United States constitutes a serious offense, leading to a possible 10-year prison sentence. However, we're in Brazil, so it's not a concern here. After this federal police demonstration, Alexandra said, hey, it looks like we have an impasse here. We will need new steps to solve the mystery of whether or not Filipe left the country, an allegation that kept him in jail for 6 months. All right? If they are using documents without legal validity, Filipe Martins hired an American lawyer named Ana Barbara, who goes to OBP in Orlando, which was identified by the federal police as the place where Filipe went and never returned. And what happened was this. Felipe's own lawyer explains in an exclusive interview she provided to Revista Oeste that she kindly authorized me to use the material so that you can clearly understand what. That's what happened. Please note that the video is short.
Can you explain what occurred? Since we lack this official confirmation from the American government regarding Filipe Martins' entry, our initial step was to reach out to Orlando, as that was the location where he was expected to have arrived in the United States. On April 11th, Orlando promptly replied, informing us that they had no record of Filipe Martins' entry. Us by Orlando, and that I should then hire from FK to New York Airport to obtain this 94, that is, this official registration, because it is the last entry of Filipe Martins in the United States. This incident occurred to Jeff Key.
Just to make sure you got it this far, okay? Felipe's lawyer goes to OBP in Orlando on April 11th, and they say no. Lawyer, there is no entry for Filipe around here. In December 2022, on April 12th, this email sent by Orlando informing that there was no entry from Filipe was added to the process and registered at a notary's office. But what about it? Did they release Filipe based on that? But okay, what happened again? After this incident, on April 25th, the federal police left for the United States to investigate the case of the jewelry and the minced card. Just a curious fact, after all, many things were happening in the United States. But finally, on May 1st, Felipe's lawyer is informed by the CBP DJFK that unfortunately she will not be able to generate the official document she requested, showing that Felipe's last visit to the United States was there on September 22nd because out of nowhere, a record of Felipe's entry into Orlando appeared, dated December 2022. Kinder egg. This Orlando CBP, right? It came with a little surprise inside. But people, what do you mean? On April 11th, the same CBP in Orlando reported that there was no entry for Filipe there and that the last one registered was at GFK. And now, 20 days later, you're saying you don't wait. Now, out of the blue, a record appeared here. Look what it is. Let's see this entry record of Filipe, because it has a pig's tail, a pig's nose, a pig's ear, but they are swearing that it is a dog. Ana Barbara, a lawyer, then went to Orlando to get Felipe's entry registration data, and to her surprise, no one. His name was misspelled. The visa class was different from the visa he had. And craziest of all, the passport number on file was a passport he had lost in 2021. And so that there is no doubt, here is the police report made by Filipe himself on ZO3 Aero 6 2021, and reporting that, hey police, I lost my passport. But it was this passport number with the wrong name and wrong visa class that appeared in the mysterious entry record in Orlando in December 2022. And people, just to update those who don't know how it works, you don't arrive in the United States and they ask you for your name and passport number. The document is scanned as in an official document. Felipe's name is written with IE and a peer written with another one. The entry record was in the name of Filipe Martins, and his full name is Felipe Garcia Martins Pereira. Name and passport are not abbreviated, even to ensure that homonyms do not occur around. Guys, it's an immigration system, but in that registration, everything was wrong. It was like this with the passport number lost in 2021. So you go back to CBP in Orlando and Felipe's lawyer, tell the guys if they're going crazy. After all, in that same place 20 days earlier, they had said that there was no Felipe's entry registered, but out of nowhere, such an entry appeared, and with all wrong data. Then OZBP from Orlando, out of nowhere, in possession of the allegations made by Felipe's lawyer, simply entered the system and corrected the data, putting Filipe's name correctly. The risk class he possessed, as well as the correct passport number. Take a quick break so I can do some drama. Love, the guys entered the system, changed data that had been entered incorrectly in the biggest hard face in the world, and consequence of this fact, I shit. At that moment in history, there was a record in the CBP of Orlando that Filipe Martins, with all his data now correct, stating that in fact he had entered the United States there by Orlando in December 2022. And then, while all this was happening, you know what Alexandre did? He went to Filipe Martins and said, hey, Filipe Amigão, there's a disagreement going on here about your going to the United States, right? So you authorize me to access your official data so we can put an end to this story? This conversation just happened in my head. But the request for authorization to access the data in the face of a false entry record validated by the Orlando CBP really took place. And Filipe Martins responded to Alexandre, are you being a bastard? Oh, with my face? No, lie too. He only denied permission, since if he had allowed access at that moment, false records would have reached Minister Alexandre's hand. What would take him to the gas chamber if we had one? Moraes even tried to subpoena the American Department of Justice to receive this data more quickly, but the guys from the States responded that, it was a good attempt, boy, but if you want that data, use due legal process via the Ministry of Justice. And that was exactly what the minister did on May 15th. OPGR Paulo Gomez was asking the Ministry of Justice to request official data from the United States for Filipe's entry into Orlando. No. What did Filipe's defense respond? That's great. I agree with APGR, so we'll enjoy it here. The Department of Justice will request official data in the United States, and we want you to ask the date that this record was entered, as well as the name of the person who entered this data. All right, record this information because it is very important. On May 28th, Minister Alexandre responded to the defense's request, which asked that these questions be attached and sent the referral to the Ministry of Justice so that they could go there and ask Orlando directly. After all, at that moment, Filipe's defense was already wanting to know who the person who entered that data was and on what date this happened. And come here, you know that day the Ministry of Justice responded, saying that it was sending the request to the United States. It never stopped there. On May 28th, after the defense's questions were attached. While all this was going on, Filipe's defense was there at CBP in Orlando explaining exactly what had happened. And they wanted to know how an agency issued a document saying that Filipe's entry was not registered, but 20 days later issues a record with wrong data, and then someone simply entered the system and corrected the data from 20 days ago that wasn't even there, were there. I'm sorry to get all excited, guys, but this is crazy stuff. You know, barrel label. Seeing that business was starting to rise, Tom, an internal investigation is made of everything that happened, and finally OBP of Orlando sends an urgent message to Filipe's defense, making himself available to resolve the issue. Then on June 5th, all the data falsely entered in the same CBP in Orlando are simply deleted as if nothing had happened, and then it is issued from the official document of the United States of America, informing that in concrete fact and without any doubt, Filipe's last trip to the United States was in September 2000. After correcting this fraud, Filipe authorizes Alexandre to access his official data in the United States. However, there was never a return of this authorization. All of a sudden, it became uninteresting. Just one detail, but while all this was going on, Filipe's defense in Brazil was not going to count on the egg in the chicken's basket. So he ran after all the geolocation documents that proved that Filipe Martins not only did not travel to the United States, but also was in Brazil all this time using a card, cell phone, and taking Uber normally. With so much evidence again presented, Bonet goes there and asks for the second time the release of Filipe Martins, and this time neither Alexandre nor APF were able to hold. And finally, Filipe's release is determined, but he is prohibited from giving interviews. Why would that be? He left unreported because he had nothing to say. After spending 6 months in prison and 10 days, a solitary confinement for the Orlando BPC guys, it was UFA. The guy got out of jail. We issued the correct document, now he's going to try to enjoy the family, right? Wrong. Filipe's first attitude when he left prison was to ask for his FOIA, which would be something like our access to information law. However, in the United States. We are requesting all your entry and exit records information. Additionally, everyone, please note that there's a specific deadline for the FOIA delivery to the applicant, but it is exceptionally tight. They missed the deadline more than 3 times and just didn't deliver. Filipe's defense was left with the impression that the American government knows it was not wanting to help solve this case. But with Trump's victory, the scenario could change. American justice could stay longer. As soon as Trump took office, Filipe Martins opened 2 lawsuits in the United States. The first was about the FOIA and why, until that moment, the document had not been delivered. The second was a request for a formal investigation into how Filipe's erroneous data ended up at CBP in Orlando, and not only who entered the data, but who corrected it and also deleted it. So guys, what happens from now on? It's crazy. It's very crazy when this process is opened. Orlando's OBP contacts Filipe's defense, asking to stop the process and see if it was possible to resolve the issue administratively. And to relieve the situation, they send a partial response from the FOIA, asking if this already helps. This submitted partial document actually shows the wrong data entered and shows when it was deleted. But you know what these documents don't show? The date on which the false record entry was entered. Bicho, the guys put a stripe on it, but not only the date they entered Filipe's false data, but also the name of whoever entered this data. Then he corrected it and then deleted it. If it was just a mistake, why would they get that information? Is it because the date of insertion of the data would be later than the date of Filipe's supposed trip, which never happened? And the name of the person who entered it. Who is this person? Filipe's defense did not accept the data provided by the CBPE. At this moment, an investigation is underway in the United States of America, whose president is Donald Trump. We want to know not only this person's name, but what his network of connections is, as well as why he would have done this. And guys, have you ever thought about whether this person's name is revealed during the course of the process? I think this can generate not only a worldwide scandal, because fraud in the American immigration system to produce evidence to arrest someone is a very super master blaster crime, but also depending on what is discovered, it can generate the nullity of the entire process. And while this information is not revealed, because believe me, everything happens at the best time that can happen. The defenses are defending themselves as best they can from a conviction practically already decreed. And so defending these charges under the normal rule of law wouldn't even be that difficult because the defense's evidence is within the process itself. So let me quickly return to Filipe Pedra's article, which could become a pineapple, which tells us the following. APF also carried out a papilloscopic examination in the first draft of the coup, the one found in the home of former Minister of Justice, Anderson Torres, one of those denounced by the Federal Public Ministry. The report did not detect Filipe Martins' fingerprints in the quotation marks document. He's the author of the draft, but the only draft they have doesn't have Filipe's fingerprints on it. And A. Furthermore, the obvious is squashed in the face of everyone in this matter. Open quotation marks. With the investigation of the confidentiality of the accusation and the documents from the PFA investigation, Martin's defense discovered that since 10/24/23, Minister Moraes had approved the removal of the confidentiality of the geolocation data of Martin's cell phone in the period between June 2022 and October 2023. Do you close quotes? In other words, in 2023, the police already had Filipe's geolocation and still ordered him arrested in 2024. And all this happened that we already commented on in the video. Crazy, crazy, just crazy. Another point raised by the article was that Sid, in his testimony, had said that, no, I have no evidence against Filipe.
Any material element that is in your possession or that you can indicate to corroborate this information that you are presenting, it's not, especially in relation to this Filipe Martins meeting, right? And in this jurist with everything in the president in Alvorada. No, everything was done on his computer, So yes, it is and it is. Possibly there may be records of this in the Palacio Alvorada, even this entrance and his entrance. Which of his entrance? I think he must certainly have the record of entering.
In advance and worth saying again. He said that the proof could be an entry record at Alvorada, a place Filipe frequented for 4 years for work, and they know it. Now this excerpt here, I had to go there in the statement to confirm. to see, look at this. Open quotes again for matter. Lawyers will question the prosecution's use of the testimony of General Marco Antonio Freire Gomez, then Army commander. In fact, Bonet's complaint is categorical in saying that the general stated that Martins participated in the meeting on 12/7/22 in the Palacio de Alvorada library and would have read the entire draft of the coup to the Army and Navy commanders. But what was recorded in the general statement was the expression of what? Possibly Martins attended that meeting and read the document. Therefore, the defense will request the video of the general statement to find out under what circumstances Freire Gomez used the term, possibly close quotes. APGR people in the complaint stated that Freire Gomez said that Filipe was at the meeting to present the draft that no one ever saw. But look what Freire Gomez's testimony says. He opens quotation marks that the meeting took place in the library of Palacio de Alvorada, which was present the deponent, who is Freire Gomez, the then Minister of Defense, Paulo Sergio, the then Commander of the Navy, Admiral Garnier, and possibly the then Advisor for International Affairs, Filipe Martins. Do you close quotes? Possibly not a certainty. So we want images of the statement to see if what Freire Gomez said matches what's in the complaint. That part, for God's sake, doesn't make any sense. Listen to me. The complaint says that Filipe would have written the draft. The POCRI draft was found in Anderson Torres' house. They didn't have Felipe's fingerprint, but they found conversations on Sid's cell phone from November 28th, where he sent himself a draft that would declare a state of siege, EGLO, which is the guarantee of the law of order. Oh, there you go. That's what Filipe wrote. So it's absolutely impossible, since Sid himself had clearly stated that he had no proof that Filipe had written the draft, given that he did it on his personal computer. But even if you choose to disregard that detail, you simply can't ignore another fundamental fact. The message is dated November 28th, 2022, correct? 3 of.
November is here. You were out of Brasilia when I was out of Brasilia. It is in the period of 7. In the week of November 7th to 11th, I was in Goiânia. It's on November 23rd and 28th that I was in Rio de Janeiro. On December 29th to 4th that I was in São Paulo. And on December 13th to 19th that I was in Itatiba, right? Barra, Campinas.
From November 23rd to November 28th, Sid was notably absent from Brasilia, according to himself. So how could this draft have been written by Philip? Answer, it wasn't. You understand that there is no proof in this case, and yet they keep moving forward, even after arresting Filipe for 6 months and throwing him in solitary for 10 days. Do you understand that Deborah, mother of 2 children, has been in preventive detention for 2 years because she wrote with lipstick on a statue, and Felipe's defense just to embarrass him? Is it going to roll in the heights? Process the Laufer book written by the judge who will judge Filipe Cristiano Zanin to defend that Filipe experiences a similar situation to that of the Lava Jato defendants, and that the same requirements pointed out by Zani to defend Moro's suspension against Lula fit like a glove in this entire process. I know they'll ignore it, but do you want an embarrassment to make the guy deny his own work? That's it. And here I'm just reporting Filipe Martins' defense because I've been following him for a long time. I believe with all my heart that your case so completely unraveled. Not only will it result in procedural annulment, but it could create serious international and diplomatic problems at a time when the gringos are all eyeing Brazil. And I intend to bring the defense of all the accused in a very didactic way. So lawyers, talk to me. I want to tell that story. This is if Brazilian democracy allows it. We hope so, since you've stayed this far, guys. Will no one ever, without the use of force and the destruction of freedom, be able to stop the movement that began in 2018 or perhaps even earlier? We are fighting because there is a legacy more important than money to be left to our children and grandchildren. And it is because of them that we need to get involved with the cultural change that is happening in Brazil. Recently, I started a new painting called Te Barbarizei. And all I want is to have that nice chat with you about Tupiniquense democracy, which is currently almost a Brazuela. Uncle Barbarizei episodes are exclusive to family members. So if you want to stay up to date with things going on in politics, tap the link that is pinned in the first comment, read for the family, and I updated you. It's after what I told you in that video. Do you understand that the right to contradict does not come cheap in this country? And my lawsuits running to this day are my witness signing. I upgraded UPP tip for 10 jangers per month. You not only fund my work, but you are also my defense. And in exchange, I offer you exclusive content. But if you want to sign up for the lifetime plan, I'll send it to you for free. This cap makes Lula a prisoner again, because the culture war is ours. If they are bad, we are bad too. If you want and can, I will leave the link fixed here in the first comment, and in advance, thank you very much. But now I want to know from you, who do you think may have defrauded Filipe's entry into the United States? And why do you think it was just a silly little mistake? Doesn't matter, does it? Tell me here in the comments that I want to know if you are not already subscribed here on my channel. My friend subscribes and leaves your like because you already know. If something insignificant or irrelevant transpires, we will return. Lots of love, everyone.